Hey YouTubers, and welcome back to another install. This one featuring an Athearn ready to run AC4400 decorated in the NS Heritage Southern scheme. Just a note of disclaimer that this is not a prototype locomotive. The current NS Heritage is based on the Gevo ES44AC. And this one is a fantasy scheme. So for all those folks out there that are looking for the real thing, those won't be available probably for at least another half year to another year, coming out I think by either Intermountain and the Heritage. Anyways, get back to this one. This is an AC4400 RTR, and it features a Soundtraxx Tsunami Decoder. And I also remotored this locomotive using a Cato H5, and it's a pretty simple process. Removing the old one, get rid of it. I find that they are prone to failure at times. They also run relatively rough. So for $20, you can pick up that new Cato motor, drop it right in, and it runs smooth as butter. You will need to lift the motor up about a 1/4 inch off the bottom of the locomotive frame in order to make clearance for the flywheels. But it's relatively easy. It takes about maybe 10 minutes or so to lift it up. I do that with double-sided tape, and then I take some contact cement and I just securely fasten that motor onto the tape, and I've never had an issue with the motor coming loose or wiggling down there. Then the next thing I do is I place the decoder. This one is a GN series Soundtraxx Tsunami, and again I take double-sided tape and mount that on the top of the motor and securely fasten it to the top of that motor, carefully measuring so that way when I place the shell back onto it, it slides right back on. This sound install is going to feature 2 speakers wired in parallel, and the rear speaker back here is a medium-sized oval 35 by 20 millimeter 8 ohm 1 watt speaker. The front one is a 28 millimeter square high bass. Now, to make space in the shell of this locomotive, I had to take my Dremel, and if you look closely here on the front of the locomotive, I removed part of that shell. Let's zoom it in here so you can see. So you can see right here where I Dremeled from approximately the rear of the shell going towards the front, so that way I can slide that 28 millimeter speaker right up inside the cab. I also had to sand the speaker itself, and I take that on my belt sander, and basically I take all the square edges and I just round them right down as much as I can. And you can kind of get an idea of taking all those edges off, rounds it up, and it allows me to fit that big speaker right up inside the cab. Now also towards the rear of the shell, I had to remove some plastic. There's normally a plastic bar that runs from approximately right here and across. I remove that, and then going back to that rear rectangular oval speaker, again you can see on the sides where I had to round it down, and that gives me clearance above the rear truck, so that way I can get these big speakers right in that right inside that shell. Normally you'd have to go with smaller speakers if you weren't going to do those enclosure modifications. But by doing that, it allows me to put much bigger speakers, and by getting bigger speakers, you're going to get better sound. The bigger the speaker, the better the sound. That's just the simple laws of physics out there. The other thing that I did was I put 0402 surface mount LEDs for lighting, both in ditch lights, which I have here up at the front, as well as for front and rear headlights. And those are just super tiny, teeny little chips. So you can see that right there. And that is the LED chip, and they are tiny. It's taken me a little bit of practice to get good at doing the soldering with that 38 gauge wire, and the wire itself is a little bit thicker than a hair, but once it's on there, it works really well. And again, so that's LED lighting for front, rear, and ditch lights. And then I have a quick connect connectors here, and so that's going from the decoder up into the shell for lighting. And then I have another quick connect right here coming off the speaker leads, and that's for my speaker. So that way, if necessary, I can get right in and take the whole shell off without fouling my wiring, and everything's nice and neat. I am going to go back and add some additional weight to the shell, and I've got plenty of room located towards the front of the locomotive. I'll probably be able to squeeze at least another 4 ounces of weight up in there, so it'll be a really heavy pulling locomotive. It'll easily, with 2 of these things, should be able to pull 100 cars. Good running locomotive, pretty decent detail, and I will go back, add wipers and jumper cables and MU hoses and various other details to this locomotive to bring up the detail level on it. But all in all, really good locomotive. So I'm going to button it up, do some programming to the equalizer and to the running characteristics, and we'll see how she sounds and run here. Okay, guys, back in a few minutes. Hey guys, back with you, and I've got the 8099 button back up, speakers in place, LEDs put in, and sit back, listen, watch, enjoy. Here we go.